Hi, everyone. Welcome back. If you've been with us for the past two sessions, my name is Anna Ruiz. I am a technical marketing architect, and I'm joined by the other host, Dan Feller, lead technical marketing architect. And so we've already talked about experience and security. And this last session that Dan and I are hosting, we're going to talk about choice. So really, whatever, whenever, wherever. And just like in the two previous sections, we're going to bring in experts. So let's just get right to it, Dan. Why don't we invite Matt to talk to us about just the flexibility that Citrix Gateway provides when it comes to the workspace.
Hey, Matt. One of the things where when we talk about this whole choice about accessing the environment wherever is how an IT team usually when they're designing an environment needs to know how many users do I have and where are they coming in from, so you can create that architecture. But when users are everywhere, how do you even come about designing something like that? What architecture can you even do where you just don't know where the users are?
Yeah, good question, Dan. Thanks to the power of the cloud in this cloud era, we can we can do that in the cloud where we have the ability to scale pretty much on demand. And so yeah, we're going to talk a bit about Citrix Gateway Service and how that scales to support workspace users. So let's first dive in with a bit of a user experience here. So with networking, there's not a huge amount to see, but if we can sum it up, really it makes it seamless for the user. We see user logging into their workspace, and we'll see that they immediately have all of their feeds, their apps, their desktops. Here's their unified app view. And here we're launching a SharePoint site that's hosted in a resource location, and there's single sign-on, easy access and straight in for the user. So Citrix Gateway Service is really the delivery arm for Workspace Service to deliver access from any location to a variety of applications, including the virtual apps and desktops, web apps, mobile apps, and SaaS apps. And it does this by proxying a connection from the user through a cloud-connected tunnel, which is secure and set up outbound only. And the cloud connector, it's just a set of services that run on Windows Server instances. It also uses Gateway Connector for web and mobile apps. And that's just a dedicated software appliance that runs on all major hypervisors. The Gateway Service also proxies Workspace SaaS connections and negotiates single sign-on directly using SAML. And for virtual apps and desktops, it also supports what's called Rendezvous Protocol, where VDAs can bypass Cloud Connector altogether and set up connections directly with Gateway Service to help improve scalability. So compared to maintaining your own gateway in an on-premise environment, Gateway Service simplifies the resource locations by eliminating the need for enterprises to maintain hardware in the DMZ, the need to do any software updates to them, the need to maintain any DNS records or public IP addresses or complex firewall rules. That's all now taken care of by Citrix with Citrix Gateway Service. So if we compare good apps and latest endpoints with plenty of resources to a sports car, let's think about how does Citrix Gateway Service get us from like crawling in traffic to getting on a high-speed network that can take us anywhere. And so one way we do that is by starting with a lot of POPs around the world. And in fact, today we have 19 that help enterprises deliver these high-performing applications anywhere in the world while minimizing the effects of network outages. And with this global presence managed by Citrix, enterprises no longer need to worry about implementing high availability or global server load balancing between multiple data centers to have this global availability. And so let's talk about now, how do we get users to the right POP? How do we get them to that nearest POP? So to understand this, first let's consider a DNS query flow. So enterprises are typically going to use their ISP to do recursive lookups. So when that DNS query comes out, it's going to go to a global root server, right? There's 13 around the world. Any cast will go out. It'll go to the top level domain servers. Then it'll get down to the authoritative name server to return an actual public IP address. This is where Citrix Gateway Service intervenes, and it identifies and responds with the public IP for the best POP for the user based on a variety of criteria it uses to identify its location. And the query response is typically based on the location of the ISP's local DNS that made that recursive query. So an important point with this is that the architects and administrators should make sure they know where that local DNS is located and that's configured for endpoints. And they have to be careful with proxies and VPN configurations to make sure those queries occur near the endpoint. And what this technology is called is optimal gateway routing, finding that closest POP for the endpoint. So the endpoints accessing Workspace servers through Citrix Gateway, they'll resolve to a public IP address that'll map to one of these FPDNs, and admins will actually see these in IP traces or DNS lookups. So last thing to talk about is what happens if a POP or a connection fails. Well, when a user's connection traverses the best effort internet to an end destination, there could be adequate bandwidth when it leaves the site or over what we'll call the first mile. But along the path, there may be outages, or there may be limited bandwidth en route, in which case packets can be queued and subsequently delay arrival, which can lead to actual timeouts for the sessions. Or there could just be congestion, which slow the packets down and cause retransmissions, ultimately also delaying their arrival. But with the Citrix Gateway service, if the user's connection drops, the Workspace apps will automatically try to reconnect, and they'll be directed to the closest POP with the least latency, and those will reconnect to their target resource location. So just to recap, it's a quick overview of Citrix Gateway service. Really what it does is it connects users with any type of Workspace application from anywhere in the world, at any time, any device, and with a great user experience.
So how I understand that was that when you use a gateway service, it doesn't matter how big or small your company is, you now have this global network, of access points of the POPs, and you'll get to whichever is the best one for each individual specifically. And then once you're on one of those gateways, you're now on this whole backplane that's going to get you to the resource the best way possible. Is that right?
Right. I think that's a good description for it, Dan. And it's seamless. If a user could be logged on at home, they hop on a plane, get on somewhere else, they'll connect to a different POP, but they see the same apps, have the same user experience. So Citrix is again taking care of all that management in the background, getting them the best user experience automatically.
Cool.
That's awesome, Matt. Just having that flexibility and that ability for users seamlessly to connect to any applications, and it's all, seamless to them. So thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate your time and your expertise.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So again, when we're in the security, we started with the user, but we always forgot about, protecting the application. And the same thing we're here now with choice. We started with the user. The user could be anywhere, and we have this whole infrastructure that can support them, but we also have to look at the application on the back end.
No, I definitely agree. So why don't we invite our last expert of all of these sessions, Jacob, to talk to us a little bit about auto scaling. So, hey, Jacob. Oh, wow. Are you safe out there is the first question.
I think you're muted.
Rookie mistake. Hi everyone. So that's not live. That's it's a little rainy and windy out right now.
So are you gonna send me honey?
Yeah, sure. You want some?
So Jacob, Matt talked to us a little bit about what gateway service can do, and we wanted to bring you in, to talk more about from the app side, just some of the benefits. So all you.
Sure. Yeah. So I know networking is boring, but one of the things that every application does is it goes over the network, and especially with public cloud and this idea of elasticity, you have trying to configure your applications over and over again and making sure that they scale correctly. That can be a little bit tricky, and so the goal, right, is a way to automate that, right, and so I can package it up and deploy things quickly and scale my applications. And I wanted to start with a little bit of a history lesson, because back in my day, we had app expert templates. And so
Was that your old man voice?
I know it was not that good. So they're still out there. You can find them on the developer portal, and it's XML. They're still downloadable, but if you've used this NetScaler thing before, that should tell you how old this is. You can also find things like web interface. I don't know, whatever that is. And they haven't been updated since like 2013. So they're a little bit old. So hopefully no one is still using a version 9 or a version 10 ADC. But obviously now the right thing to do is use stylebooks, and stylebooks are a part of ADM. And I'm going to actually back out here to ADM stylebooks. And so you can see here, right, there's a ton. So if we zoom in a little bit, right, you can see there's GSLB, there's some basic content switching, Skype for Business, Exchange 2016. There's all kinds of different style books, and they're all packaged up really nice. You can see what they look like. Right now, I don't necessarily want to sit down and build that myself, but it is at least human readable, and you can put a description in there, and you can see what the application is doing.
You left out a semicolon in the code.
Hey, I didn't build that. Those are the defaults now, and I can prove it to you, right? Because hey, these are all stored. These are all stored up on GitHub. So if you wanted to take a look at them, if you didn't have an ADM, or you just wanted to, to pull them down in raw format, you can do that, right? So they're all right here, some YAML, and you can again view it here on GitHub. So enough about back in my day, right? I don't want to be on-prem anymore. I'm going to move all my stuff up into the cloud. And one of the great things to make that easier is stylebooks. And the best way to do that is to migrate my configuration. So when I move my applications to the cloud, I've got my ADC on-prem, and I've got an ADC up in Azure or AWS or GCP, wherever it might be. But I don't want to sit there and rebuild my entire configuration. I'm going to move a few applications at a time, and so I can't just lift and shift or take the whole ADC config. What stylebooks allow you to do is to literally migrate your configuration. So just a note, right? This is still in tech preview, but it's been in tech preview for a little bit, so I think it's going to be GA'd here soon. But what this allows you to do is to pick your instances, right? And I've got a lab instance here, and I've got a cloud instance here for the sake of quickness. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and look at what applications I've got on-prem, and I'm going to choose the one or several applications that I want to migrate, and I'm going to just give it a name of Home Assistant. And what it's going to do is it's going to parse out the configuration, all the relevant commands and CLI stuff from the source ADC. I saw it there before, and now it's stuck in my head. Right, and it's going to let you know, hey, here are the CLI commands. If you need to edit them, you can edit them here if you want. But because you're migrating this up into the cloud, right, the IPs are going to be different, right? Your forward-facing IP address is going to be different, so you can use this to go ahead and make a change to however you would need. If there is any configuration differences between your on-prem ADC and your public cloud ADC, this is the place that it lets you know, hey, there's a few things that are a little bit different right here. I've got some features that are turned on, turned off, and that sort of thing. Plus, hey, you can say, hey, I acknowledge that I've reviewed the configuration. Obviously, I'm not going to go ahead and do that right now, but just a quick showing of what is possible. The other thing that's really nice with stylebooks is you have this ability to essentially import a configuration, right? If you have an application that's custom in-house running on your ADC and you want to take the configuration that you've built, you can do that with stylebooks. It makes it really easy. Now, last thing I mentioned, right, was this really cool thing about the cloud, scalability, elasticity. So the way to do elasticity with applications and auto scaling of my applications is, again, with stylebooks. And so one of the things that you need to be aware of is there's something called an auto scaling group. And what that thing is it's a group of ADCs that are running up in some public cloud. Now, this is controlled with ADM service, right? It's the Citrix Cloud Service version of ADM. Very similar, but there are a few things that are enabled in service that are not on-prem. One of them is, of course, auto scaling. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly and talk through it. But the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to choose your cloud. Then you're going to build out your auto scaling groups. Now, the way to do that is you need to, obviously define your zone. Then you're going to configure out where the throughput threshold is, all of these parameters for when that auto scaling event is going to happen. So it could be CPU bandwidth and that sort of thing. We're going to make sure we have licenses for any of these auto scaled machines that get popped up here. And then last, we need to configure the cloud. Obviously the subnets and any client keys or different zones need to be configured here. Once that's done, we should have 2 nodes that are built out in our auto scaling cluster, and you should see that here. That it was successful. So we have node 0 and node 1. Now, once we have that, that's kind of our basis. I'm going to build an application again with a style book. There it is, just a basic load balancing style book. And one of the other great things that style books give you is this nice front end that I can say, okay, what's my IP? What am I doing? What are some of the things the application needs in order to be to run behind an ADC? So we're going to pass some traffic through this application, and there are 2 nodes now. I'm going to fast forward here, of course, but we are going to see eventually there's going to be a threshold met, and another node should pop up. There it is. So you can see we now have a 3rd node that was created, and you should see here, yep, there is the node provision initiated. So we scaled out to meet the needs of the application because there was too much traffic going through, and the 2 couldn't handle it. Now the other side of this coin is, well, what happens when, I don't need that 3rd node? I don't want to pay AWS or Azure for that compute resource. So we can also scale in, and you can see here the traffic has subsided. So we should see in just a moment, I think we'll look at the logs and we'll see that scale in after we drained off all the connections. There it goes. And you see a drain connection timeout, and then you see that node deprovision. So we're no longer, we don't need that node any longer, and I certainly don't want to pay for it, pay for consumption there in AWS. So
that's really neat, especially I don't know if you saw the last session that we had on security, but Frank was talking about the whole bot management, and that all these bots are impacting these web applications, increasing the load, trying to bring them down and everything, and then you have to keep adding more hosts to be able to support because of all these bots.
Right.
So when you do the bot management, you can reduce the load, and then you can use something like this. So when you actually have legitimate traffic, it would just scale up for you. But without bot management, it seems like that could be a little interesting because the bots could actually make you start scaling up. So putting these things together actually makes a lot of sense.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
And it looks like a lot of this, Jacob, also really gives the administrators that choice, right? And just gives them that flexibility and really facilitates that migration to cloud, and helps with that. Because I think a lot of times customers don't want to move to cloud because it's very cumbersome. And it looks like here it's just we're giving them those tools in order to make it easier for them.
Yep, absolutely. It just makes it that much easier to move applications around with ADC and ADM. Yep.
Super cool. Well, Jacob, we really appreciate your time.
Thank you guys very much.
All right, so there we go. That is experience, security, and choice. And you can kind of see how these things are connecting together. So it's not just experience, but it's experience, security, and choice, how they all fit together.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool thing, and not only how we fit together at Citrix, but how we're adding third-party things like Florin mentioned, like Rick mentioned in the previous session, so that we can integrate with whatever you want and whatever other providers that you're utilizing to build your workspace. So.
Yeah, so I think we should thank everyone for joining. And there's still some things going on with this event, after this session. But this is it for me and you. Another session done.
Yep. All righty. Bye, Dan. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.